Into some details about that. But first, for years, Israelis in the world were told that borders, occupations, settlements were the heart of the conflict that we have between Israel and the Palestinians. And you have said that that is just a convenient illusion. So what is the deeper truth that we have been avoiding?
The deeper truth, and I understand why we've been avoiding it because it's a tough one, is to understand that our enemies, almost without exception, are defined by a commitment to a total ideology that essentially wants to see no sovereign Jews anywhere between the river and the sea. For about 25 years in my books, essays, lectures, I would always bring a quote by British Foreign Minister Ernest Bevin after World War II, where he defines the conflict as irreconcilable. And that's before you have settlements and occupation and Bibi and all that, all the comforting excuses we have today. And he says the conflict is irreconcilable because the Jews in the land want to establish a sovereign Jewish state. So the Jews have a liberation movement called Zionism that wants independence and statehood. And I'll add, this is why they achieved it. And the Arabs in the land, and those are the Arabs that will later hijack the name Palestine to be known as Palestinians, he says their top priority is to resist to the last. This word resistance, it also appears in the name of Hamas, Mukawama. We hear it, we see it in the demonstrations, resistance, right? Resist to the last the establishment of Jewish sovereignty in any part of the land. So basically he's saying, this is not a conflict between two movements, each seeking independence and statehood, in which case it makes sense to share and have two states. He's saying we have one movement, the Jewish one, Zionism, that wants the goal of an independent state, and another movement, the Arab one, what I call now the Palestinianist, I call it Palestinianism, this ideology, who's devoted above all to the non-existence of the other. So they don't have a positive desire. They actually are organized by negation, by destruction. And this is true all the way to the present. This is why they chose to take Gaza, which does not need to be a place of misery. It has beautiful beaches and fertile soil. It has every objective reason to be a global hub of tourism and trade. And they took all these assets, the land, the goodwill, the gullible Israelis who just wanted them to build something. And rather than build something for themselves, true to their ideology of Palestinianism, they preferred to turn Gaza into a single integrated weaponized landscape for the purpose of destroying what the Jews have built rather than build something for themselves.
But then you do make it sound like a land dispute in the end of the days. Is it really about the land, or is it about the destruction of the Jewish people? From the river to the sea is a certain location of land for Jewish identity. If we had gone to Uganda, would they still be trying to kill the Jews?
It might be other people, but the Arabs of the land have organized themselves around the idea of negation in the land. If the Jews were to go somewhere else, I'm sure there'll be others who will organize themselves. But Palestinianism is organized, but it's important to say also, this is not just any land, right? It's not like, oh, we can go here, we can go there. This is, by the way, a story that Palestinianists like to say. You know, we don't oppose your sovereignty elsewhere. I'm like, yeah, but here is where it matters, because for the Jews to be sovereign, it's only in the land of Israel. Everywhere else is temporary exile, but here is the only place where we're sovereign. The Jews are connected to one land and one land only, collectively. Individually, go live wherever you want, but as a people, we're connected to this land. So saying that the Jews should not be sovereign in this land is not just about any territory.
100%. Now, I was reading your party's platform online, and Oz, or you as the head of Oz, argues that the Palestinian refugeehood must end,
yes,
including the so-called right of return. I don't disagree, but Einat, you know how explosive that kind of statement sounds. Why do you believe there is no future for the state of Israel without confronting this idea of the right of return directly? I mean, we've lasted for 77 years without dealing with it.
Well, we've lasted in war, and the reason is that what I've come to realize through my research, through meeting with Palestinians, is while Israelis and many in the West thought that this whole perpetual refugeehood, and there's now a great movie called UNRWA, based on our book on the War of Return that's out and really visually shows it, we thought these were bargaining chips for a negotiate so that they can get a state. What we realized is the state was the bargaining chip so that they can exercise this idea that they call the right of return. There's no such right, but it is essentially their synonym for no Jewish state. The way that I explain it is throughout all the years of negotiations, when Palestinianist leaders would say two states, we assume that one of the two is the Jewish state, right? Stands to reason. Turns out they never said that. They never meant it. They said two states, I'm not denying that, but they meant an Arab state in the West Bank and Gaza and another Arab state to replace Israel through what they call refugee return. So you're saying, yeah, we survived in perpetual war. What I'm saying is, if we are to chart any kind of different future that is not just perpetual war, I mean, we might need to, but it's certainly not a vision, then we need to chip away at the ideology that underpins all these wars, and that's the ideology of rejecting Jewish sovereignty in any part of the land. And that's why return and perpetual refugeehood have to go.
So I want to make sure that we get to more of the questions, and especially when it comes to what's happening in Gaza. You know, we're in this ceasefire, right, where Hamas is still ruling Gaza, and let's be honest, Hezbollah is still unarmed. So what story is the international community, and especially U.S. President Donald Trump, telling itself? I mean, in a few sentences, how is this actually going to end?
So the big lie, comforting lie, and I'm very critical of Israel for having participated in this lie, is that Hamas doesn't represent the Palestinians. There's just this like evil thing called Hamas, and other than that, we're cool. And this is a comforting lie, but it's a lie, and it leads to bad policies because people are now focused on, okay, disarming Hamas, and Hamas will be like, okay, we'll put the weapons like here on the side. I'm like, no, the problem is not disarming Hamas. You need to disarm the ideology in the name of which Hamas operated. Hamas is not some alien force to Palestinianism. Hamas planned the invasion and massacre in the name of return. So the ideology has to die. The greatest thing we need to do, and we can do to disarm Hamas, is to ensure that no one in Gaza is registered as a Palestine refugee. 2/3 of the people in Gaza are bizarrely registered into the 5th generation as Palestine refugees. If we are able to remove that, that will do more to disarm Hamas than any piece of metal that we take out of their hands. If we'll be able to ensure that countries come together in a legal opinion that says there's no right of return, there never has been, Gaza is your final destination. Again, in the movie Unraveling UNRWA, you really see how important those refugee UNRWA cards are to their identity. I'm saying make sure that there's a ceremony before we build anything in Gaza that is permanent. They hand over their refugee cards. Make it a ceremony.
They say, this is my home.
Exactly. Get a Gaza resident card with a map of Gaza.
100%.
And say, this is it.
So we're not going to get to talk about every controversy